What's up, preppers? Welcome back to another video. Today we're going to talk about grid down and something called the Blackout Report. So as many of you already know, on this channel I'm preparing for an event such as the Carrington event. That's what got me started prepping in the first place, and that's expanded into prepping for everything possible that I can think of to the best of my ability. So grid down, however, is something that seems to be more likely than unlikely, even if it's in smaller segments, if it's 5 days, 3 days, a week, a month, forever. Either way, there's always a chance of blackouts and power cuts. Now, if you live in a more rural setting, you might already experience this. So the question's always, how would we cope with a worldwide blackout? And the catastrophic knock-on effects that could have. This has been dramatized in many different films and also in series on Channel 4 as well. So there's all sorts of theories behind this. Generally, the thoughts are it's all going to turn to anarchy within days. I do think you've got a bit more time than that. People do have a bit of faith in the system, and neighbours will help neighbours, and I do think people come together. People are generally quite good. It's when it gets to the stage of people are running out of things, shops not being open, things like that, when panic starts to set in and people might start doing more rash behaviour. And then, of course, society as we know it could descend into chaos. Order would give way to anarchy as panic grows. And if you picture that in the UK, I mean, I know we have US followers on here as well. You guys have just as much to think about, but in the UK we're quite compact, tight together. There's not really, even when you live rural, you're never that far away from a neighbour or people or a town. So that anarchy is less avoided in this country if it comes to that. Even MI5 are famous for saying we are only ever 4 meals away from anarchy. This is because with a disruption to the nation's food supply, it would breed widespread rioting, looting, and things like that. We are living very hand to mouth in this country as it is. Lots of people are suffering with the cost of living, and we've seen how quickly supermarkets can empty when there's a panic. So we only have to look back a few years to see that, and see how quickly them shelves empty, especially for certain supplies, things that have large shelf space like toilet roll. And we saw the chaos with that. After a blackout, it won't be long before the telecommunication network quickly becomes quite useless. Mobile phones will only be able to make calls because data needed to access the internet won't work. The mobile network coverage is only likely to last a couple of hours because they are running off cell batteries once the grid is down. So you've got a very finite amount of time to make a call to get things sorted, if you can even get through on that network. Obviously we had the old style plug-in landlines, but they would run off the grid, so they wouldn't be working. Satellite signals and practically all TV and radio broadcasts will go off the air. BBC will offer like very limited updates on FM frequencies, which you can pick up on wind-up radios and car radios and things like that, because they do have backup powers, and they would like start that up to issue a warning and then shut it back down again. So that would continue for a short period. Transport system would be completely gridlocked on trains or on buses or on the actual roads in cars because of the fuel station. All the fuel stations need electricity to pump the fuel. So that quickly goes. Very few have a backup generator for that situation. So you can imagine all services and things are going to be affected. Now, on this blackout report, they put out this timeline. So I'm going to pop this on the screen here. And you can see 0 hours. Services with backup generators and uninterrupted power supplies will continue. Closure of all services like financial and education. 0 to 2 hours. Increased demand on public service and closure of transport networks. 2 to 6 hours. Mobile phone network likely to collapse after roughly 2 hours. Public unable to communicate. BBC Radio 1 to 4 provides limited broadcast updates. And it does say, but how many people have battery-powered radios or would think of using their car radio to listen? Well, this is the point, but obviously with the new government guidance, hopefully a lot more than before. 6 to 12 hours. Severe staff absence begins due to transport disruption and school closures. 12 to 48 hours. Water supply failure. Some water treatment works can only last for 6 hours without electricity. Food in fridges and freezers will start to go off. Then 2 to 7 days. The core fixed telecoms network is likely to fail after 5 days. Batteries will need changing in the airwave network, the special mobile comms network used by the emergency services, and potential public disorder. Now that's only going into 7 days. Obviously, the further you go down that line is more of that disorder, more disruption to the economy. Obviously, all payment systems are going to be offline, all cash is going to be offline. This report goes into it in quite a lot of detail, and I will link to the report below. I'll link to the actual website, but I'll put you a direct link to the report as well, because for me on the website, the actual download this report link didn't work. So I managed to find it, so I'll put that on there as well. The question is preparedness. Are you prepared for grid down? Now, a Faraday cage is one thing for protecting against EMPs and protecting against the impact of something like that. But for the actual grid going down, you've got to think how much battery life you've got, what alternative power sources you've got. Solar power being one of the optimum ones, any sort of wind or turbine power. If you can be off grid and self-generate that, that's awesome, that's brilliant. But people like that also might start to become targets. You've got to watch your OPSEC with this. If you've got big solar panels on your roof and all your lights are on at night and everyone else is off, you're soon going to get people knocking on the door saying, can you charge my phone? Can you do this? Can you do that? Really think about your OPSEC with this one. Okay, blackout curtains. Do not advertise the fact that you've got power. But yeah, my preps are less centered around the alternative power and more around the living without power. So I used to do reenacting 1860s style, no real power or electricity then. So lighting, heating, cooking, sterilizing water and managing waste. These are the main points that you're going to need to prep for this situation. And it has to be sustainable. It's all right having enough camping gas to last you the week. Superb. If you have a week blackout, no problem. Once that week's over, what's the plan? So it needs to be something sustainable. Learning to cook on open fires, learning to make open fires covertly, so it's not a raging flame pit in the back garden. It's just all about that kind of sustainability. With regards to keeping warm, I mean, we rely so much on central heating these days, but we've survived hundreds of years without it. Learn from the past is what I would say here. Thick extra blankets, wool blankets. You can have these pans for your bed that you could put hot coals in from the fire and warm your bed up before you get in. You know, that was quite a rich person's thing, that the servants would do that for them. But there's all sorts of different methods we can learn from the past. And as we go over the next few weeks, I'm going to release a few different videos of different techniques used in the past that could be implemented in a grid down situation. Now, it could get expensive, this, if you went really all out for it, when you were getting like mangles and things to wash your clothes with. But if you look at the reenactors route, look at anyone reenacting Napoleonics or Civil War, anything like that, look at what they use, look at what they do. Because the technology is not just going to an antique shop to find it. Because of these living history societies and these reenactment societies, people are making replicas all the time, fully working functional replicas of technology you may need. So one thing to look at as well is what are the odds. So this is also displayed in the Blackout Report, which I'll show you here. So this says 1 in 10 chances of a male living to the age of 100. 1 in 100 chances of a 9-year-old boy becoming a professional footballer. 1 in 200 chances of total shutdown of the UK electricity network in the next 5 years. Bear in mind, this was produced in 2021. 1 in 240 dying in a road accident, 1 in 285 of being killed by a firearm if you live in the USA, 1 in 11,500 of winning an Oscar, and it goes on and so on and so forth. But you look at the odds there, you're more likely to see this entire grid down than die in a road accident in the UK. And you think how many people that happens to all the time. These odds are not reasons to panic, but reasons to prep. And as long as you're ready for something like this on a short scale, there's always a chance that law and order will prevail and they will get the power back up. So it's about making sure you maintain your lifestyle during that period. You're able to not just survive, but maintain to have some sort of quality of life in that period without electricity. It also goes through on the report the likelihoods of each type of thing, like if it's going to be a cyber attack, if it's going to be a solar flare, etc., and the likelihoods of that. And that's quite interesting reading. So National Grid does have contingencies for this, and they have something that they call a black start, and they say that the average restoration time for 24 hours to reinstate 60% of the national demand, providing it is practical and cost effective to do so. Now their timeline for this is at 0 hours, the incident leading to total loss of power and need for black start restoration, 0% customers restored. 0 to 2 hours, black start capable power stations will start to come online. 2 to 6 hours, demand starts to be restored as black start power stations operate at approximately 5% of customers restored. 6 to 12 hours, approximately 10% of customers restored. 12 to 48 hours, approximately 60% of customers restored. And then 2 to 7 days, it gradually goes up day by day, 70%, 85, 19, 95, and day 7, 100% of customers' powers should be restored. That's their contingency for a complete loss. I don't think that really takes into account people getting to these workplaces, no physical damage being done during when the grid went down. So there's all sorts of things to think about in there. But the essential idea is you'll never be really without power for more than 7 days, according to them. You have to take into account that most of the UK's electrical infrastructure is in open country where protection from determined and widespread physical attacks would be almost impossible. So when we look at this on a war footing, this is quite a large risk. So as I said, it does make for some interesting reading. I'm not going to sit here and read you the whole Blackout Report. It's 53 pages of a PDF. But as I said, I will link directly to it below, and I will link you to the website that produces this. Definitely an interesting read. Consider your preps for grid down situation. One good thing to do is practice. Start with just 24 hours, maybe 48 hours, depending on your schedule and what you can manage, where you literally just shut the power off, okay? Or simulate shutting the power off. You really don't want all your food to defrost in the 48 hours just for a drill. But other than the freezer or the essential items like that, shut everything else off and make a commitment not to use it in that 48 hours. That won't give you the same sort of dread you would have or the panic you may have in that situation, but it will get you accustomed to, okay, how do we do this? And you will start to see the holes in your own preps and things that you then need to get and create a list to do so. I hope this helps. I hope the information that I've linked helps with the Blackout Report. Let me know any considerations you've had towards this and what you think the threats are in the comments. Always enjoy reading your comments. And if you made it this far, don't forget to hit the like button on your way out. Subscribe if you're new to the channel and hit the bell notifications. And I'll see you all in the next video. Bye.